They don't really care about us. So what people say, we know the truth. All I want to say is that they don't really care about us. Enough is enough of this story.
Mike, and they don't really care about us. I'm gonna read something for you right quick. Then I'm gonna move over to a video. Grand Rise, Open Roads was actually 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I won't say Grand Rise, but I will say Open Roads, peace, welcome. And check this out. I'm gonna read something for you real quickly here. This is human rights journalism. Human rights journalism. This is the way journalism is supposed to be ran. This is the way this Black United Nation will run our journalism, okay? It will be said just like this. If you're for human rights journalism, this is what it looks like. Human rights issues are more newsworthy than in the past. First bullet, state control over media has decreased over the past 2 decades. It's if you're for human rights journalism, okay? That doesn't look like that in the United States today. Let me go on. There are more organizations that promote human rights and that feed the media with information. There are more human rights watchdogs that investigate human rights abuses and publish information. The United Nations monitoring system is more visible. More issues are framed as human rights issues, for example, children's issues, HIV/AIDS, sexual and reproductive health, aging, poverty, housing. Okay, I know I'm dramatic. More governments have integrated human rights into policies and laws, and that is true. The United States is not one of them. More governments have integrated human rights into politics and laws. Political parties take more account of human rights. Human rights are discussed during elections. That is not in the United States. Technology like the internet and mobile phones, as well as social networking platforms like Twitter and Facebook, mean there are more ways of receiving information, more sources, and more alerts. My information is currently suppressed. Technology and social networks are creating new ways of reporting human rights violations. Not happening with any social media platform I know, except for Telegram. I'll say that out loud. Some international media networks like BBC and CNN now employ people living in developing countries as journalists and stringers. This creates opportunities for finding international audiences for local stories. I don't know about all that, y'all. That's what it would look like if it's for human rights. If you're against human rights, this is my favorite one. If your country or your state is against human rights, this is what it's going to look like. Human rights often work against powerful political and economic interests, and the threat of repercussions can be great. Many journalists have cultural beliefs and practices that do not fit well with human rights ideals. In times of crisis, governments may introduce laws that violate human rights. Victims of human rights violations are often afraid of talking to the media. I can't tell you, I haven't had not one. I've contacted every media source, including Black journalists and broadcast media sources. And I've yet to have one invite me on to discuss human rights law. And I've been doing this for 2 years. Not one, not white, Black, nobody. One did. Not me. They invited Sister Elena Porter. And that was Iran. Okay, but y'all supposed to be mad at Iran because the United States told you to. You don't even know why. They told you they doing something to women over there. But our women are coming up missing by the hundreds of thousands every year in this country. Ain't nobody saying nothing about the women, what they doing to the women here. I'm trying to make this video short. Let me go on. In developing countries, there is a limited technology. Victims of human rights violations are often afraid of talking to the media. In developing countries, there is limited technology infrastructure, i.e. mobile phone and internet connections. This works against journalists in a high-speed news environment. I wonder, we've got all that stuff. Doesn't mean that anybody is getting any of the information. It is not always easy to fit breaking news into a human rights format. Meaning how they're holding Ramzu Yunus in Detroit, Michigan for the last 4 days without charges. Without charges. Without charges. They're not charging him. They're talking about somebody filed an injunction, but about what they're not saying. All right, I'm just telling you the facts here. I'm just a messenger, y'all. I'm just a messenger. And I feel like Detroit should be ashamed. They should be out in front of the courthouse, in front of the police station by the thousands. 40,000 of you are homeless. I mean, really. In most developing countries, journalists are under-resourced, lacking even the most basic tools, computers, cameras, transmission equipment, and finances, like money for transport and accommodation. The Human Rights Commission in Detroit should be helping Brother Ramzu Yunus regain all of the computers and servers that were stolen by the Detroit City Police and never returned. All right. Many journalists are freelancers or stringers. They struggle to sell human rights stories that are not headline news, but which are ongoing problems. Grandmaster J, Ramzu Yunus. Oh, forgive me, Ramzu Yunus, Daniel Guttridge, and the other young woman that they locked up. Like poor health services, lack of water, inadequate education, because your education is not only inadequate, it's shameful. The United States has shameful education. It's shameful. Inadequate education to editors concerned with budgets. In some places, media are still controlled by the state, ABC, NBC, CBS. States have the power to shut down the internet or to censor internet content. Need I say more? All right, I'm gonna leave that there. That's part of the course that I've been taking. And I'm about to go back and study, and I'm gonna finish this with this video. Just pay attention, y'all.
So if the citizens who are supposed to be in charge don't feel they are, who does? What we found is that by and large, it's the wealthiest Americans who call the shots through unelected institutions that drive agendas in their own interests. There may be a cabal running things, but in the end, the state and the system merges, argues Canadian political analyst Leo Panich.
I don't think there's an external force controlling the American state. The American state is capitalist to its core in the very way it's organized. It doesn't do it because there's too much influence from Wall Street. It does it because it is structurally embedded with Wall Street. It doesn't do it because there's too much influence from a military-industrial complex. It does it because the military-industrial complex is inside the state, is funded by the state, is part of the state.
Sure, there are people who conspire and there's people who act in secret, but capitalism is not a conspiracy. The people who have the wealth, they're not a conspiracy. We know who they are. We know how they collect this money. They take it out of our pocket, they put it in theirs, and it's not a big mystery.
There seems to be corporate forces in addition to Wall Street that essentially help guide our political and economic direction. Leading are America's top corporations. Political analyst Michael Clare has studied the political economy of oil for 20 years and says a lack of media coverage keeps the public in the dark. Does the media cover it?
The media doesn't cover this for the most part. In fact, the media is largely in league because of the advertising dollars that the oil and gas lobby provides. They're very heavily dependent on advertising revenue, so they're very careful in what they say.
Who are they accountable to? Are there laws really controlling and regulating what they do?
There are laws, but they have been written largely by their lobbyists to favor them. So in fact, the laws for the most part are in their favor, not in the favor of most Americans.
Is there an issue where we've seen this very clearly, where the interests of the oil industry or the energy industry is in conflict with the interests of Americans?
Well, I would give an example that the oil industry has been pushing for drilling in the deep waters of the Gulf of Mexico and off the coast of Alaska, for example. And they get all kinds of tax benefits for that kind of deep water drilling. And they were able to do so during the Bush period with absolutely no oversight whatsoever, hence the Deepwater Horizon disaster.
Most Americans experience the oil industry in two places: at the gas pump, where prices often rise because of speculation, not just supply and demand, and also through TV advertising that paints this very profitable business in the most positive of terms.
I'm still here, and so is BP. We're committed to the Gulf for everyone who loves it and everyone who calls it home.
That's good for our country's energy security and our economy.
Which brings us to another set of corporations, the media companies. Jeff Cohn has been in the media and written books about its impact in shaping how Americans think about their country and its system of power. He says media companies push propaganda for war.
It's the same exact media quoting the same exact experts that pushed our country and the world into a war with Iraq. And we were told by these media, oh, we're so sorry. We didn't know, we made a mistake. Next time we'll be more vigilant. But here we are next time, 10 years later, and the same media are blowing smoke about a weapons program in Iran that doesn't exist. There was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq either. And so we're hearing, it's like, when the war drums are beating, And I worked in mainstream television news in this country during the run up to the Iraq War. When the war drums are beating, they don't let you put on opposing views. We tried to get opposing views that question the evidence, the intelligence that would justify an attack on Iraq, but we were kicked off the air. And now you're finding it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare that's happening again.
At the same time, Jeff, most people who work in major media, and I of course did as well, don't believe this. They don't buy this. They feel like they do have the freedom to cover issues and that the networks are much more diverse in their point of view than outsiders like you and maybe now me would say.
Well, the way to rebut that fiction is just to look at what happened in the wake of the Iraq invasion. Those of us who question the evidence that they were a weapons of mass destruction threat, we were totally right. And most of us got kicked out of the TV networks. The people who got it wrong have promoted up. So this idea of diversity in the mainstream media or good journalism will win out certainly hasn't been proven in the last 10 years, where the journalists who got it right have been punished, sanctioned, or kicked out of the media. And the journalists who got it wrong, most of them have more power today to blow smoke at Iran than they had even when they were blowing smoke at Iraq.
Those people, the people who own institutions, are usually very conscious of their power, not just as individuals, but as part of a dominant class, says independent TV producer Brian Drolet.
So there's a lot of talk here about Democrats and Republicans. Should we vote for the Democrats? Should we vote for the Republicans? There's a lot of talk about, the rich versus the 99%. But it's kind of, there's a certain kind of amnesia about the structure of our society that at one point in this country at least had some currency. In the 30s and even in the 60s, you could talk about the working class. Nobody talks about the working class. It's all about there's a middle class and then there's the 1%, as if there's, and I guess then there's some, poor blacks and Latinos or something, right? And I think that word has been sanitized and scrubbed out of the vocabulary of the people of the United States, including out of the vocabulary of the left. Now, that's not the entire left, but even the people that use the word class don't seem to have the ability to phrase it in a way that actually means something to people.
To talk about class is not to talk about a conspiracy, but a complex system that's evolved over the years, a system that is stratified and uses campaign contributions and lobbying to ensure that the politicians do the bidding of the companies. So these are the building blocks of the analysis we'll explore in this series on Who Rules America. The argument is simple.
You go watch this video on your own. My job is simply to show you that it exists and challenge you as a people. And specifically, I do speak to Black America, white America. This is the one message I have for you. If you agree with all that we are saying, handle your business, as you have always done. I can count within my years of living the number of people, white people, who have given their lives for Black America. You'll rally for us until it gets dangerous and you'll run. You can run. You can pretend in circles of people who don't know you that you don't support us. Your skin is your ID. The minute it gets dangerous, you can walk away. Black America cannot. That is my only message to you. Do with it whatever you feel. Black America, did you not see? Go back if you didn't. Did you not see what human rights journalism is supposed to look like? Did you not see what journalism is supposed to look like? I say journalism and human rights journalism should exactly look the same. There should not be a time when journalism supersedes human rights journalism. There should not be a time when human rights gets put on the back burner. Stay tuned. I got more coming. Open roads to inner, over, and outer standing. Open roads to those who are not afraid to speak up. Use your voice as a vote. Go to Pendo, the number 4, freedom.org. Pendo for freedom.org. Thanks for hanging out with me.